My uncle forged my dying grandfather's signature and stole 500 acres of prime Montana farmland worth $4.2 million. He thought he'd gotten away with it. He celebrated. He sold parcels. He got rich. But he made one fatal mistake. He underestimated a 28-year-old woman with her grandfather's stubbornness, a forensic accountant's brain, and absolutely nothing left to lose. My name is Claire Hartfield, and this is the true story of how I took back every single acre, destroyed my uncle's empire, and made sure he'll spend the next decade in federal prison thinking about the day he crossed the wrong granddaughter. Before I take you on this wild journey of family betrayal, land theft, and ultimate justice, I want to ask you something. If stories like this, real people fighting back against corruption and winning, resonate with you, please hit that subscribe button right now. It helps us share more of these incredible true stories with people who need to hear them. And if you know someone dealing with family disputes or property battles, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing others have fought and won gives you the courage to fight too. Thank you, and now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. I grew up in Bozeman, Montana, surrounded by mountains, endless sky, and the Hartfield family ranch. 500 acres of the most beautiful land you've ever seen. Rolling hills, clear streams, cattle grazing in pastures that seemed to stretch forever. Grandpa James, Hartfield, built that ranch from nothing. He bought the first 50 acres in 1962 with money he'd saved from 2 tours in Vietnam. Over 40 years, he expanded it, acre by acre, until he owned 500 acres of prime agricultural land in Gallatin County. That land wasn't just property, it was legacy. It was blood, sweat, and the American dream made real. Grandpa James was my hero, tough as nails, fair as a judge, and stubborn as a Montana winter. He raised 4 kids on that ranch, my mom Sarah, my uncle Richard, my uncle Tom, and my aunt Linda. But by 2016, everything had changed. Mom died in a car accident when I was 16. Cancer took Aunt Linda in 2014. Uncle Tom moved to Seattle in the 90s and never looked back. That left Richard. Uncle Richard, the golden child, the favored son, the one Grandpa trusted to help manage the ranch as he got older, and the one who would destroy everything. I was 28 years old in 2016, living in Denver, working as a forensic accountant for a mid-sized firm. Good job, decent apartment, dating a guy who was fine, but not forever. My life was fine, just fine. Not great, not terrible, fine. The ranch was my anchor, my connection to something bigger. Every summer since I was 5, I'd spent weeks there with Grandpa, riding horses, fixing fences, learning the business. He'd promised me, "Claire Bear, someday this will be yours and your cousins. I'm building something that'll last generations." I believed him. In March 2016, Grandpa had a stroke. Severe. The doctor said he might not make it. I flew to Montana immediately. He was in the ICU, tubes everywhere, barely conscious. But when I held his hand, his eyes opened. "Claire," he whispered, his voice like gravel. "I'm here, Grandpa. I'm right here. The ranch. Protect it. Richard, don't trust. Grandpa, don't worry about that now. Just focus on getting better. Promise me." He squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Promise you'll protect it." I promise. Those were the last words he spoke to me. He slipped into a coma 2 hours later and died 3 days after that. I was destroyed. Grandpa James was the last real family I had. With Mom gone, the ranch gone, I'd have nothing connecting me to my roots. Except I didn't know yet that the ranch was already gone. 2 weeks after the funeral, the family gathered at the lawyer's office in Bozeman for the reading of the will. It was me, Uncle Richard and his wife Patricia, Uncle Tom, who'd flown in from Seattle, and a handful of cousins I barely knew. The lawyer, an older man named Edwin Kowalski, opened the file with a somber expression. James Hartfield's last will and testament, updated February 15th, 2016. Wait, February 15th? That was 3 weeks before Grandpa's stroke. Why would he update his will then? Edwin read, I, James Hartfield, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including all 500 acres of the Hartfield Ranch and associated assets, to my son Richard Hartfield, to manage and distribute as he sees fit among the family. The room went silent. Uncle Tom stood up. That can't be right. Dad always said the ranch would be split equally among all his grandchildren. Edwin looked uncomfortable. This is the will on file, signed and notarized by Mr. Hartfield on February 15th. Let me see that, I said, my accountant brain kicking in. Richard smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. Dad knew I was the only one capable of running the ranch properly. He trusted me. This shouldn't be a surprise. It's a huge surprise, Tom said. Dad and I talked about this last Christmas. He said Claire was supposed to get the house and 200 acres. I was supposed to get 150 acres. The rest would be split among the other grandkids. This is wrong. Are you calling our father a liar? Richard said, his voice dangerous. Edwin intervened. Gentleman, lady, I understand this is emotional, but this is the legal will on file. Unless someone can prove it's fraudulent, this is how the estate will be distributed. I stared at that document. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Can I see the signature? I asked. Edwin hesitated, then showed me. I'd seen Grandpa's signature 1,000 times, on birthday cards, on checks, on the original ranch deed he'd shown me when I was 10, saying, someday, Claire Bear, your name will be on this too. This signature looked off, similar, but not quite right. The J in James was too loopy. The H in Hartfield had a different slant. I think this is forged, I said quietly. The room exploded. Richard jumped up. How dare you? Are you accusing me of forgery? Our father just died and you're making wild accusations? I'm saying this doesn't look like Grandpa's signature. You're a bitter young woman who expected a handout. Patricia, Richard's wife, chimed in. James made his decision. Accept it. Edwin cleared his throat. Miss Hartfield, if you believe the will is fraudulent, you can contest it, but you'll need evidence. And you should know, contesting a will is expensive and rarely successful. Richard leaned back in his chair, that smug smile returning. Go ahead and contest it, Claire. Waste your money, but that ranch is mine. Dad wanted it that way. I flew back to Denver that night, my mind racing. Everything felt wrong. Grandpa's last words, don't trust Richard. The updated will, just 3 weeks before his stroke. The signature that looked off. I couldn't let this go. I called Uncle Tom. Do you believe that will is real? Hell no, he said immediately. Dad and I had detailed conversations. He wanted the ranch divided. He wanted you to have the main house. He knew Richard was difficult. Difficult how? Tom sighed. Richard's been in financial trouble for years. Bad investments, gambling debts. He'd borrowed money from Dad several times and never paid it back. Dad was getting ready to cut him off. That's why this will makes no sense. Why would Dad give everything to the one son he was about to disown? My forensic accountant instinct screamed, Tom, I need you to tell me everything you know about Richard's finances. Over the next hour, Tom laid it out. Richard owed at least $300,000 to various creditors. His construction company was failing. He'd been desperate for cash. Desperate enough to forge a will? I spent the next week digging. I called the notary listed on the will. She remembered the document, but said, Mr. Hartfield seemed off that day. Quiet, didn't make eye contact, signed quickly and left. Did he seem sick? Maybe, or nervous. I remember thinking it was odd. I got a copy of the will and compared it to signatures on other documents I had. Birthday cards, old checks, the original ranch deed. The more I looked, the more certain I became. The signature was forged. Someone had practiced Grandpa's signature and done a decent job, but not perfect. But proving it would require resources I didn't have. Meanwhile, Richard moved fast. Within a month of Grandpa's death, he put the ranch up for partial sale, carved off 100 acres and sold it to a development company for $850,000. I called him furious. "You can't sell Grandpa's land." "It's my land now, Claire. The will was clear. I can do whatever I want with it. That land was supposed to stay in the family." "You're not family anymore. You're just a bitter girl who didn't get what she wanted. Move on." He hung up. I was shaking with rage. That land had been in our family for 50 years. Grandpa had bled for it, and Richard was selling it off piece by piece to pay his debts. But I had no proof, just suspicions. That's when I met the ally who would change everything. Her name was Margaret Chen. She was a forensic document examiner based in Billings, Montana. 72 years old, semi-retired, with 40 years of experience testifying in fraud cases. I found her through a desperate Google search, "How to Prove Forged Signature, Montana." I called her office. She answered personally. "Miss Chen, my name is Claire Hartfield. I believe my uncle forged my grandfather's will to steal our family ranch. I need help proving it, but I don't have much money." There was a pause. "Tell me about your grandfather." I told her everything about Grandpa James, the ranch, the suspicious will, Richard's financial troubles, the land sales. When I finished, Margaret said, "I'll take your case. How much do you charge?" "For you, nothing up front. If we prove fraud and you win, you pay me from the settlement. If we lose, you owe me nothing." "Why would you do that?" "Because 30 years ago, my father's business partner forged documents and stole everything we had. My father died broken and poor. I became a forensic examiner to stop people like your uncle. So let's stop him." I almost cried with relief. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. Get me every document you can, every signature, every letter, every check. We're going to build an airtight case." For the next 6 months, I became obsessed. I collected every document with Grandpa's signature I could find, birthday cards from my childhood, old tax returns, letters he'd written to me in college, checks, contracts, deeds. Margaret examined everything with equipment that looked like something from a crime lab: microscopes, spectral analysis, pressure point measurements. "Look at this," she said during one of our meetings, showing me 2 signatures side by side on a split screen. "Your grandfather's authentic signature has consistent pressure points. The pen moves fluidly. But this will signature?" She pointed. "The pressure is uneven. There are hesitation marks, microtremors. Someone was carefully copying, not naturally signing." "Is that enough to prove forgery?" "It's a start, but we need more. We need to prove opportunity and motive." I dug into Richard's finances. As a forensic accountant, I knew how to follow money trails. I discovered Richard had been stealing from Grandpa for years. Small amounts at first, $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Grandpa probably didn't notice or chose to ignore it. But in 2015, Richard had taken $75,000 from the ranch operating account. When Grandpa discovered it in January 2016, they'd had a massive fight. Grandpa had threatened to disinherit Richard completely. I found an email Grandpa had sent to his lawyer in January 2016. "Edwin, I need to update my will. Richard is out. I'm splitting everything among the grandchildren, with Claire as primary executor. Can we meet next month?" Edwin had responded, "Absolutely. How about February 20th? But Grandpa never made that appointment. because on February 15th, 5 days before the scheduled meeting, someone had submitted an updated will with Grandpa's signature. The timeline was damning. When I filed the lawsuit challenging the will, Richard went nuclear. He hired expensive lawyers, filed countersuits claiming I was harassing him, got a restraining order preventing me from coming near the ranch. His lawyers sent threatening letters. Your client is engaged in a frivolous lawsuit with no merit. We will pursue sanctions and legal fees. Richard sold another 75 acres, another $640,000 in his pocket. I was running out of time. If he sold the entire ranch before the case went to court, there'd be nothing to fight for. My own lawyer, a tough woman named Jennifer Morales, filed for an emergency injunction to stop all land sales pending the outcome of the fraud investigation. The judge granted it. Barely. Richard was furious. He called me from a blocked number. "You're destroying this family, Claire. When I win, and I will win, you'll have nothing. I'll make sure you never work in Montana again." "You forged that will, Richard, and I'm going to prove it." "Good luck with that," he laughed. "You're just a little girl playing detective. This is the real world. Money and power win. You have neither." He was right about one thing. I was running out of money. The legal fees were crushing me. I'd burned through my savings, maxed out credit cards, taken a second job on weekends. But I couldn't stop. Grandpa had asked me to protect the ranch. I promised. 8 months into the investigation, Margaret found it. She called me at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Claire, get to my office now." I drove 2 hours from Denver to Billings, arrived at 1 a.m. Margaret was in her lab, eyes blazing with excitement. "I found it, the proof we need." She showed me the will document under her specialized equipment. "Look at the paper itself. This will was supposedly signed on February 15th, 2016, but the paper," she pointed to her analysis, "this specific paper stock wasn't manufactured until March 2016. It's impossible for your grandfather to have signed a document in February on paper that didn't exist yet." I stared at the screen. "Are you sure?" "Positive. I contacted the paper manufacturer. This batch was produced March 8th, 2016, and distributed to Montana retailers starting March 15th. Your grandfather had his stroke on March 10th. Someone created this will after your grandfather was already in a coma." "Richard," I whispered. "Richard," Margaret confirmed. "He forged the will after your grandfather could dispute it. Probably bought the paper, practiced the signature, forged it, and submitted it to the lawyer. The notary probably got fooled or paid off. Either way, we've got him." I felt electricity run through my body. "Will this hold up in court?" "Oh, honey," Margaret smiled. "This will destroy him in court." The trial began in September 2017, 18 months after Grandpa's death. Richard showed up confident, expensive suit, team of lawyers. I showed up with Jennifer Morales and Margaret Chen. The courtroom was packed, extended family, media, people who'd heard about the case. Jennifer laid out our case methodically. The paper evidence, the signature analysis, the timeline showing Richard's motive, the email proving Grandpa intended to disinherit Richard, the financial records showing Richard's debts. Richard's lawyers tried to discredit Margaret's analysis. They brought in their own expert who claimed the signature was authentic, but Margaret destroyed him on cross-examination. "Sir, you claim this signature is authentic. Did you perform spectral analysis?" "No." "Did you measure pressure points?" "No." "Did you verify the paper stock?" "No." "Then on what basis do you claim expertise?" The expert stammered. He had none. The turning point came when Jennifer called the paper manufacturer's representative as a witness. He brought manufacturing records, batch numbers, distribution logs. This specific paper stock did not exist on February 15th, 2016. Period. If a document dated February 15th is printed on this paper, it's fraudulent. No exceptions. Richard's face went pale. His lawyers requested a recess. When they came back, they tried to negotiate. Perhaps there was a mistake in the date. Perhaps Mr. Hartfield signed it later. The judge cut them off. Counsel, are you admitting the document is fraudulent? No, Your Honor, but then we'll continue. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty of forgery, guilty of fraud, guilty of theft. The judge's words rang through the courtroom. Mr. Hartfield, you betrayed your family, dishonored your father's memory, and committed serious felonies for personal gain. I'm invalidating the fraudulent will, ordering full restitution of all sold properties or their cash value, and referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Richard was arrested in the courtroom. Patricia was sobbing. I sat there numb as federal marshals led my uncle away in handcuffs. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The original will, Grandpa's real will from 2012, was executed. It split the ranch among all grandchildren with me as primary executor, just like Grandpa had always intended. Richard was ordered to return all money from the land sales, $1.49 million plus interest. He didn't have it. His lawyers had taken most of it in fees, and he'd spent the rest paying debts. So we took everything else. His house, his cars, his construction company, his retirement accounts, everything. He declared bankruptcy. Didn't matter. Fraud debts can't be discharged. The criminal case was even worse. Federal fraud charges. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. 7 years for forging one signature. Patricia divorced him while he was awaiting sentencing, took what little was left. Richard lost everything. His freedom, his family, his reputation, his future. And me? I got the ranch back. All 500 acres. Every inch that hadn't been sold was returned. For the parcels that had been sold, I used Richard's restitution money to buy them back from the developers at market rates. It took 2 years, but I did it. I restored the Hartfield Ranch to exactly what Grandpa had built. I'm 33 years old now. I left my job in Denver and moved back to Montana. I run the Hartfield Ranch full-time, 500 acres of legacy, just like Grandpa intended. I've turned part of it into a working cattle ranch and part into a conservation area. I give tours to school kids, teaching them about sustainable agriculture and land stewardship. I named the main pasture James's Field with a memorial plaque, James Hartfield, 1940-2016, a man who built something worth fighting for. Richard gets out of federal prison in 3 years. I've heard through family that he's bitter, angry, blames me for everything. I don't care. He made his choices, he forged, he lied, he stole. He paid the price. Uncle Tom visits every summer. We ride horses through the fields and remember Grandpa. Margaret Chen comes by occasionally. We've become close friends. She's teaching me forensic accounting techniques, and I've helped her with several other cases of family fraud. The ranch is thriving. I've hired 2 full-time ranch hands, and I'm training the next generation of Hartfields, my cousin's kids, in how to care for this land. So, what did I learn from this nightmare? First, trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. That signature felt wrong from day one. I could have ignored it, accepted defeat, but I trusted my gut. Second, documentation is everything. Without physical evidence, the paper stock, the timeline, the financial records, I couldn't have proven anything. Document everything, always. Third, never underestimate the power of a determined woman with nothing to lose. Richard thought I'd give up, thought I was too young, too poor, too weak. He was wrong. Fourth, justice exists, but you have to fight for it. The system worked, but only because I worked the system. I filed the lawsuit. I found the evidence. I didn't stop until I won. Fifth, legacy matters. Grandpa spent 40 years building that ranch. It represented his life's work. Letting Richard steal it would have dishonored everything Grandpa stood for. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. And finally, greed destroys everything. Richard had a good life. He could have worked with the family, shared the inheritance, lived comfortably, but greed made him forge a will. That decision cost him 7 years of freedom, his marriage, his reputation, and any relationship with his family. Was it worth it, Richard? Was $15.5 million worth losing everything? I'm standing on the front porch of the ranch house as I record this. The sun is setting over the mountains. Cattle are grazing in James's field. The land stretches out as far as I can see. This is mine now, not because someone gave it to me, because I fought for it, because I honored a promise to a dying man. Richard tried to steal my grandfather's legacy. He failed. The Hartfield Ranch will be here for another 100 years. My children will run it someday. Their children after them. That's the real victory. Not destroying Richard, but preserving what Grandpa built. My name is Claire Hartfield. I'm 33 years old. My uncle forged a will and stole 500 acres worth $4.2 million. I took it all back. Every single acre. And if you're out there fighting your own battle against corruption, against family betrayal, against people who think power and money always win, don't give up. Document everything. Find your allies. Trust your instincts. Fight like hell. Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the good guys win. This is for you, Grandpa. Your legacy is safe. I kept my promise. Rest easy, James Hartfield. The ranch is in good hands.